Lytudiep. Hello, dear friends. In the end, who was behind the destruction of Jame and Lytudiep's life so that they had to be separated? Was it Jame's secretary? When Jame and Lytudiep found each other out of her selfishness, did she continue to harm Lytudiep? Let's follow along today. Amid the damp silence of a dense forest, where sunlight only pierced through narrow gaps between the thick canopy like scars on a faded sky, an old wooden cabin stood near the edge of a cliff. It was cloaked in moss and ivy, as if nature itself had tried to bury it in forgetfulness. Inside, Diep lay still on the cold wooden floor, her body frail from exhaustion and hunger, her eyes sunken but still burning with the unyielding light of someone who refused to be forgotten. In her hand, she clutched a small silver ring, its gemstone removed and hidden in a way only she and one other would understand. She had pried it open with a hairpin sewn into her sleeve, carefully concealing a tiny note inside, coordinates written in ink visible only under UV light. It was a last signal, a lifeline to the one person she believed would find her, James. Each day, she placed the ring near the single window where sunlight barely reached, hoping it might reflect or glimmer, anything that might help someone notice. She did not pray for rescue from the world. She prayed for James. Even as her strength faded, she believed he was searching, that somewhere beyond the vast and silent forest, he still carried her name like fire in his heart. James was no longer the composed, controlled man he used to be. After Diep vanished, something within him fractured irreparably. He abandoned his job, distanced himself from everyone, and chased shadows across maps, whispers in forums, fragments of memories others had already dismissed. Each night, he dreamed of Diep's voice calling him. Each morning was another cruel awakening to silence. He became a ghost among cities, hunting a trace that might not exist. But one day, returning to an old ranger station where they had once camped, he found it. The ring, buried near the stream under a bed of moss. The very ring he had slipped on her finger on her birthday, where she'd whispered with a smile, "If I'm ever lost, I'll leave something only you would see." He rushed the ring to a lab, scanned the gemstone, and under ultraviolet light, the numbers appeared, coordinates in a forbidden forest zone, one no longer tracked. It didn't matter. With nothing but his backpack and that light of madness only love could ignite, he set out. He trekked alone, across rivers, up cliffs, through mud and storm. He didn't eat, barely slept. Snake bites, open wounds, thorns, none of it stopped him. Because somewhere in that wilderness, Diep was waiting, and his soul would not rest until she was safe. When he reached the cabin, his heart shattered at the sight. Diep, barely conscious, whispering his name in a breath thinner than air. He burst in, wrapped her in his arms, trembling. Neither of them could speak through the tears. But just as that fragile peace began to settle, a familiar voice sliced through the air like a blade. From the shadows stepped Tran, her hair chopped, her eyes burning red with fury and grief, her smile twisted by years of bitterness. She didn't raise her gun right away. She walked slowly around them, like a predator savoring its prey. Tran wasn't just a captor, she was a ghost from their past. Once James's closest friend, she had loved him in silence for years. When he chose Diep, something inside her died. That quiet heartbreak festered into obsession. Tran believed the only way to make James understand her pain was to take from him what he loved most. She didn't want Diep dead. She wanted her trapped, to be a witness to the collapse of James's hope. She wanted to be the god of a world she could control after losing everything in the real one. But now, seeing James standing in front of Diep, shielding her with his body, Tran's world began to crack. Her voice broke as she shouted, listing the years she had spent invisible, unloved, forgotten. But James didn't raise his voice. He took a slow step toward her and said, "You don't have to win. You just need to heal." Tran's hand shook. The gun dropped. Her knees buckled. And then, after years of silence, she cried. Wild, broken sobs from a soul that had held too much for too long. When the authorities came, James asked for compassion, not punishment. Tran was taken to receive psychological treatment, not prison. He understood that no one becomes a monster by choice. They're made that way, piece by wounds no one sees. Years passed. James and Diep didn't flee the world. They embraced it. They built a center for people healing from emotional abuse, obsession, psychological trauma. They shared their story, not for attention, but as a lighthouse for others lost in darkness. They taught that real love isn't blind or possessive. It's patient, enduring, and strong enough to survive even the forest of madness. Each morning, James still brought Diep her favorite tea. She still straightened his tie before they walked into their center, side by side. They never needed a wedding. The world had already witnessed their vow, a promise forged in the wild, sealed by fire, and whispered across miles of silence. I will find you, always.